This week on Retrospect, we travel back to 1995 for a look into a program made for journalists to help them prepare to go into war-torn countries.
We're journalists from Canada. We spent the night at the observation post, and now we are moving back to our car.
17 Canadian journalists were learning how to prepare themselves in case they ever have to work in a war-torn country. Camp Wainwright held a war correspondence course dealing with a variety of wartime scenarios.
My body's numb. I got the shivers and I'm cold.
We've gone through mine recognition, checkpoint negotiations, the chemical, biological, nuclear attack threat, and first aid, which is also really good, how to do shrapnel wounds and splinters and just emergency field dressings.
The week-long course is the first of its kind in Canada for English-speaking journalists. Jennifer Westaway has worked in a number of different conflict zones and has witnessed firsthand the dangers journalists can experience.
A shell landed on the Muslim side, and that Italian TV crew never made it out. And what stuck with me out of that is in all the preparations that you can take and how careful you want to be, your flak vest, your helmet, all of those things, you can have an unlucky day. And you got to think about that before you go out there and whether the story that you're going for is really worth getting.
The danger, along with the sights and sounds of war, is becoming more common by the day, making courses like this more important.
I think it's important for people to remember that in the whole Vietnam conflict, less than 100 journalists were killed. In the first 18 months of the Yugoslavian conflict, 52 journalists were killed. So the risks are high.
It's crazy to go in. We don't have experience with any of this kind of stuff. And the most basic things are going to save your life. And if you get at least those basics down, you've improved your chances of coming out. And we cover wars a lot more than we used to. We're out there in conflict areas now because the Canadian Army is out there as peacekeepers, and if they're there, we ought to be there.
For the most part, Canada is a conservative nation, and journalists in our country aren't thrown into wartime situations. But over the past week, camera operators and reporters have been thrown into wartime situations and have been taught how to survive in them. At Camp Wainwright, Jim Unger, NewsHour.
Next, we jump forward to the year 2000 for a look into how a musician utilizes his skills for animations, and how the internet has helped him and his group.
He started out as a hobby musician, but today Don Ray is a local computer analyst. In his spare time, he still finds time to indulge his creative side. Ray is involved in a technologically advanced animation project.
The project itself is a parody of the Star Trek The Next Generation series. A very entertaining parody of the series itself and what Gene Roddenberry's vision of the future actually is.
And skin problems have been eradicated. Forgive me for noticing, number one, but that's one heck of a sit you have there. Physical appearance is no longer a social obsession. It is indeed huge, sir.
There is another element that makes this project intriguing. Two of Ray's partners live in Australia, while one lives in the U.S. Ray has never met them. All of their business and communication is done through the internet. It's another indication of how technology is changing business. But Ray says it suits him just fine.
Well, it actually works fairly well because you can't get into an argument. And all you can do is just send a note to somebody, and it really is an interesting way of doing things.
Technology will solve all our problems. What is our progress, Beta? Excellent, Captain. I require only one more Thunderstone to evolve my Pikachu to level 47. Beta!
Ray's job is to assemble and compose the audio for the project, something he spends hours working on.
And there's another continuous string that's happening in the background. Right about here, you'll hear a French horn start to come in.
When the project is completed later this year, Ray and his partners expect to market the film on the internet to a global audience. Despite the fact that he lives in small-town Alberta, Ray doesn't think his rural roots have stood in the way of his contribution.
Being in a small town doesn't seem to hinder you when you have the internet available as a facility. In this day and age, we can communicate right across the planet without too much effort or energy. And it's just a fantastic thing to have such a facility available.
Rochelle Chandria, NewsHour.
And that's all for this week of Retrospect.
Retrospect is brought to you by Webb's Machinery. Find New Holland products at Webb's Machinery, your dealer in Vermilion, Vegreville, Lamont, Wainwright, St. Paul, and Consort.